Well, hey, Sojo. Merry late Christmas. Happy early New Year. I'm Jordan.
Hey, and I'm Corey, and we just wanted to shoot a video because this is the last Sunday of the year, and we wanted to honor our volunteers because we know that they work so daggone hard every single week in and week out, and just to give each other a break. But instead of just not doing anything, I felt like it was really good for us to kind of recap and see what God's done over the past year. So Jordan, what was like your highlight this year? Like one thing that you saw that was like, bam.
Yeah, I think, we were huddling up last night, and I was the guy that was like, my highlight might be tonight. I don't know. Last night was awesome for us. We're shooting this the day after we did our Christmas service, and it was just a great night. But I think the highlight for me throughout the year has been the experience of the growth. My first experience at Sojo was at one of the pre-launch meetings over at New Life, and that night when you were doing like all these fun team building exercises, and the night that I remember the most, we were doing this thing where we were like writing clues on each other's backs and trying to figure them out, and all these people that I had never met before, I was now meeting for the first time. Wasn't even 100% signed on to be on staff and do stuff with Sojourner yet, but I remember that, and then I looked from that, fast forward all the way to last night when we had 210 people at our very first Christmas service, and it's just like, man, God is doing something really cool. And so that for me stands out as probably my highlight for the year, is the difference between those pre-launch meetings and what we saw last night. God's been faithful.
And about that faithfulness, I go back to that and just want to use this time that we have together today just to remind of God's faithfulness. And I go back to what Jordan was saying when we were meeting at this little tiny church called New Life Church on Poplar Tent Road. When we met in this little cafeteria, and the cafeteria smelled bad, it was dank, it was dark, it was just not a good place to be whatsoever, but that was the place that God had given us. And I remember the very first interest meeting, this was before you even came, literally it was the very first time, and we had about 17 people show up, and one guy and one gal, literally, I'm not lying to you, they literally got in a fight in a parking lot before the service started. And like I said the other night, maybe you were there, maybe you weren't, to Dave and Brittany whenever they were leaving, I said, if you guys want to give up now, I understand completely. I just didn't know that this church was going to take off, and certainly not take off the way that it has. And it just reminds me of God's faithfulness from the very first launch Sunday when all these people came in. I think we were hoping for 150, and God brought us 160 something, to our very first baptism, to our very first baby dedication, to the ways that we've been able to serve that's for me, like the way that we've been able to serve our community. For me, a church should not only be measured by what happens on Sunday morning, because there's 167 other hours in the week, but a church should be measured by what happens Monday through Saturday. And it's just been super cool for me how we've served the school that we're in, from giving money for a well, to just serving the teachers, to being mentors for the students in the school, to providing turkeys for, the list just goes on and on and on and on. And so I just want to remind us, and I pray to God, like you guys hear this above anything, that God's been faithful to us as a church in 2019. Like, that is without a shadow of a doubt. We haven't missed a bill. We haven't missed a beat. And I believe the beat is going to go on into 2020. So with that, Jay, what are you hoping to see in 2020? What are you praying God to do? What does that look like for you tangibly for us as a church?
Yeah, I think, my prayer always has been, that especially from my responsibility as a worship leader, that we are able to touch heaven in our worship. And that doesn't mean that we're always going to have these over-the-top, mountaintop experiences, but it does mean that we are going to strive and search for the presence of God on a daily basis. And like Corey said, there's more hours in the week than there are the times we meet on Sunday morning. So it doesn't just mean come on Sunday mornings and we're going to sing and that's the only time that we express our worship or even open up the Word of God. Like, having a deep connection with Jesus and this nearness that's just going to be an overflow on Sunday mornings. that because you're spending the time with the Lord during the week, you're in your word, you're worshiping during the week, not just with songs and lyrics on a screen, but in your daily lives. Your life is worship. This nearness is going to happen, and we're going to just have this beautiful collision on Sunday mornings where everybody that is spending time with the Lord, that is has this nearness with the presence of God, that presence of God then is going to come in this corporate setting, and we're going to be able to just have this beautiful moment together where we can touch heaven, you know. And that's my prayer. That's my hope for 2020 is just more of that. We've had a few moments this year where we've kind of felt that, and I just want more of that for us as a church and for you, because there's nothing like it.
And I love that word more. Like personally, that's the word that kind of God's been impressing on me is this idea of more. And I get that word can be conflated because maybe simply I just mean like more people or more money, and that's not what I mean at all. What I'm looking forward to in 2020 is this idea of 2020 clear vision, and that's my heart. My heart is that for us as a church, we would have more vision, more hope, more purpose, more peace. And my true and everlasting prayer for each and every person that calls Sojo their home, whether that is a present tense, like that this is my home right now, or maybe you watch this video, or maybe you watch this video 2 years from now and you've been coming 6 months. I don't know what that is. But in the year 2020, it is the year that every single person, Jordan, like for real, every single person gets to taste, gets to touch, gets to see the God-sized dream that He has placed in every single person's heart. That's my idea of more 2020. That's my prayer for every single person that calls Sojo their home. Honestly, it's my prayer for every single person in the kingdom of God, that God's got a God-sized dream for Jordan, for me, and that through His Word, just like you said, and I think I said it last night and I'll say it again, the more that we're in our Word, the more that we're in our compass, the more that we receive that vision, the clearer that direction is. But the less that we're in that word, the more confused. And I feel like we're living in a world that is more and more confused than ever. But the Bible is so accessible right now. And we have more access to the Bible through technology and everything else under the sun. But we are probably the least Bible people in the history of time, which doesn't make sense other than the fact that we feel like we know how to live life, but we're living life more anxious and more hurting than ever before. So again, my hope, my dream, my desire that in 2020 is that every single person that calls Sojo home, whether that's from a present tense or maybe you watch this video from a future tense, I don't know, that God will allow you to see that, to taste that, to touch it, and then to feel it with your life. And here's what I know, that if we do that, for the unbeliever and for the believer, to see that God's got a dream for them, to help them walk in that God will give us more as a church. He'll entrust to us. I love what Truett Cathy says. He says, I don't want to have a bigger restaurant. I want to make a better sandwich. And when I make a better sandwich, I know I'm going to have a bigger restaurant. And so from my heart is I want to help see people become better. And I want to see that for you. And I want to see that to tangibly happen in 2020.
Yeah, I think, it's exciting. I think what the Lord's doing is something really unique. I was telling Corey, when I first came on staff, I felt like this new kid on the block, because I was stepping into a team that had really been in church plant mode for maybe like 6 or 7 months prior to me even coming aboard. And so like stepping in like that first month, it was like, okay, God, like where do I find myself here as a part of Sojourner? But one thing about the people of Sojourner is I feel like we are such a family. And I've seen that aspect grow even throughout this year, even just from the people that I work with on a weekly basis, and the new people that we've brought in, to now those people that were new back like in March, April, and May, they're now leading teams. Yeah. They're not just door holders anymore, they're lead door holders. And they're the ones training the new people. And it's just like, all right, man, God's doing something. People are getting discipled, people are growing, people are stepping into their leadership, and it's special. And I can't wait to see more of that in 2020.
Yeah, two of my favorite things that happen on Sundays, number one is the buzz that happens in the lobby that started happening. Since you guys gave to that grow offering, and we'll be able to put some more tables out there, and a little bit more signage that kind of says who we are, and people starting to hang out there and talking and creating memories and creating friendships. That's been a true highlight. And then the second highlight, we moved our communion time to the middle of the service, and I started noticing people going down to the altar and praying as they take communion. Those are two of my favorite moments, and I'm asking God for more of those moments as well.
Yeah, and I think, kind of as we wrap up this video, I know for myself and for Pastor Corey, we're both just very grateful that we get to be a part of what God's doing. Because I know we've both worked in prior churches and been in places where the culture that we have is rare. It's not normal. And that's why I think both of us are just very grateful for it. We're grateful for you. We're grateful for that we get to be the people that are a part of your lives on a weekly basis. I know for me, I never take for granted that I get to be the person that leads you and ushers you into worship every Sunday. And I'm so thankful that you allow me to do it.
Yeah, and I look forward to January 5th, because as much as we've had a great year, I seriously believe that 2020 is going to be the coolest year of ministry I've ever been a part of, Jordan.
Yep.
I for real believe that.
It's a great year.
2020.
The Roaring 20s.
But even the Roaring 20s. I'm going to get my derby hat and everything. But we're going to kick it off right, bro.
Yeah.
We're going to kick it off right with 21 days of prayer. And this is the first time I've ever done this, but I believe that if we will dedicate the first 21 days, and what I mean by that, January 5th, we're going to kick this off and basically take it through January 26th, the last Sunday in January, and really hone in what's your one word for 2020. What's the one word? We've talked about more.
Yeah.
That's what we want to see, more worship, more community, more family, more church plants, all this stuff. I didn't mention that we planted our first church this year.
How did we forget that?
How do we not give shout out to Q, man? We
Yeah.
tell we love you, but how do we not talk about that? But more of that as we send out Daniel this year. It's just going to be a great year, but we've got to kick it off right.
Yeah.
We got to kick it off, and I believe that there's nothing better than to dedicate ourselves going into 2020, the year of vision, by setting it off right, by saying, okay, first 21 days, we're gonna pray, we're gonna fast, and I'm gonna tell you more about that coming in 2020. See you January 5th.